Most Mercedes owners use maybe 30% of what their car can actually do, not because the features are hidden, because nobody ever showed them how to use them properly. Today I am going through 10 features almost every Mercedes owner is using wrong. Some are ignored completely. Some are being used in a way that actually works against you. And the feature at number 1, most owners have never switched on, even though their car has had it since day 1. Let's get into it. Number 10. The voice assistant. Nobody talks to properly. Almost every Mercedes owner knows the system responds to the phrase, "Hey, Mercedes." Almost none of them know what it can actually understand. The most common mistake is treating the voice assistant like a command prompt. Short, rigid instructions. Navigate to this address. Call this contact. Play this song. The system accepts all of those, but it was built for something considerably more capable than a voice-operated button press. MBUX, the voice and infotainment system in post-2019 Mercedes models, is designed for natural conversation, not commands. Conversation. You can say, "I am a bit cold," and the system adjusts the temperature without you specifying a target degree. You can say, "I need somewhere to get coffee," and it pulls up nearby options without you naming a search category. You can say, "It is too bright in here," and it dims the ambient lighting without you navigating a menu. The system learns your voice patterns over time and adapts continuously to your preferences and phrasing habits. Most owners never allow it long enough to learn anything, because they switch back to touchscreen input out of frustration within the first 2 weeks. The frustration usually comes from using commands the system was never designed to receive. Used conversationally, the learning curve disappears almost entirely. There is also an interrupt function that most owners never discover. If the system is mid-response and you start speaking again, it stops immediately and listens, rather than finishing its own sentence first. This makes back-and-forth dialogue genuinely functional on a moving motorway, rather than the awkward turn-taking exercise most owners experience the first time they tried it. The most overlooked capability is contextual follow-up. After navigating to a destination, you can say, "Find me parking near there," and the system understands the reference without you repeating the destination. Continuing a conversation naturally rather than restarting every request from scratch is where this system genuinely separates itself from a basic voice command interface. A practical habit that transforms daily use is starting interactions with context rather than commands. Instead of saying, "Set temperature to 22 degrees, say, "It is quite cold in here." Instead of saying, "Navigate to the nearest petrol station," say, "I need to fill up." The system was trained on how people actually speak, rather than on structured command syntax, and using it the way it was trained produces noticeably better results than treating it like a voice-controlled touchscreen. The next feature is one almost every owner uses every single day, and almost every one of them is getting it wrong in the same specific way. Number 9. Driving modes. Used in the wrong order. Almost every Mercedes with configurable driving modes has the same problem inside it. An owner who discovered comfort on day 1 decided it sounded the most sensible and has lived there ever since without exploring what the others actually change. Most drivers assume Eco mode simply makes the car feel sluggish to save fuel. That is only partly accurate. In all-wheel drive models, Eco actively deactivates the rear axle during steady-state motorway cruising and re-engages it only when additional grip is needed. This alone meaningfully reduces fuel consumption on long runs. The mode also adjusts the climate system compressor cycling to reduce engine load. The throttle feels slower because the system is asking you to drive in a way that takes advantage of the other 2 changes happening simultaneously. Sport mode changes 4 separate things at once. Throttle mapping sharpens noticeably. The transmission holds gears longer before upshifting and drops a gear more decisively under acceleration. Steering weight increases. On air-suspended models, ride height lowers slightly to reduce drag. The critical misunderstanding most owners carry is that sport mode itself burns more fuel. It does not. The fuel consumption difference comes from how drivers tend to behave in sport mode, not from the mode itself. Driven at identical speeds, Sport and Comfort produce near-identical consumption figures. Individual mode sits in a category of its own, and it has its own section later in this list because the way most owners set it up means they are essentially driving Comfort mode under a different name, without knowing it. The biggest practical change most owners can make immediately is using Sport on fast roads, where the sharper gearbox logic is a genuine benefit. Switching to Eco on long, steady motorway stretches where the drivetrain management saves real money, and leaving Comfort for urban environments where it was actually designed to perform. If you are not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button right now because we are about 9 features deep into things your dealer forgot to explain on delivery day, and what is coming next completely changes how useful your cruise control actually is. Number 8. Cruise control that can actually drive in traffic. Most Mercedes owners think Distronic is a highway tool. a way to maintain a set speed on a long straight road without keeping a foot on the accelerator. It is not only a highway tool, it is a full traffic management system. Active distance. Assist. Distronic with stop and go can follow the vehicle ahead from motorway cruising speed all the way to a complete standstill. The car brakes automatically, holds itself stationary, and when the vehicle in front moves again within 3 seconds, accelerates back up without any driver input required. The failure most owners make is disengaging the system in slow traffic because they assume it only functions above a minimum speed threshold. There is no minimum speed threshold. It works from 0. Commuters who discover this late in ownership consistently describe it as the single most transformative feature realization they experience, because it converts stop and go city traffic from an exhausting sequence of physical micro-decisions into something the car manages entirely on its own. There are 4 following distance settings, selectable from the steering wheel controls. Most owners set a distance once on day 1 and never change it again, regardless of traffic conditions. The tightest setting is appropriate for dense city traffic where large gaps simply invite lane changes. The widest setting is designed for motorway driving where the vehicle needs additional time and space to react to sudden braking ahead. Running the same distance in both environments means the system is always poorly calibrated for one of them. What most drivers also do not know is that if the car comes to a complete stop and the vehicle ahead moves again after more than 3 seconds, a single tap on the resume button restarts the system without the driver needing to manually accelerate first. The expectation that you need to take over completely after a full stop is what causes most owners to disengage Distronic in urban traffic rather than letting it continue working. Running Distronic in city traffic on a long commute also reduces the physical fatigue that accumulates from repeated small brake and accelerator inputs across a journey. Drivers who switch from manual driving to Distronic on urban commutes consistently report arriving less tired, which is the entire point of a feature that was designed for exactly that scenario. The next feature requires even less input from the driver than Distronic does, but most owners manage to interfere with it in exactly the same way every single time. Number 7. Parking Assist. That you keep interrupting. Active Parking Assist on Mercedes models can identify a suitable space, position the vehicle, and complete a parallel or perpendicular park without the driver touching the steering wheel. The most common mistake is hovering hands near the wheel the entire time and occasionally making light contact the moment the steering input looks unexpected. When a driver touches the steering wheel during an assisted park, the system interprets the contact as a manual override command and stops the maneuver immediately. It has to be restarted entirely from the beginning. Most owners who tried the feature once felt the wheel begin turning toward what looked like a too tight angle, instinctively touched it to moderate the input, watched the system abort, and concluded it was unreliable, have never actually seen the system complete a park without interference. Your only job during Active Parking Assist is the pedals. Steering is entirely handled by the car. Creep forward and backward as prompted by the guidance arrows. That is the complete list of driver responsibilities during the maneuver. The scan mode is a separate function most owners do not know exists at all. Rather than activating the system only when already positioned next to a space, you can activate it while driving to slowly past a row of parked cars. The system scans each gap and alerts you when one is long enough for your vehicle. Slowing to below 30 km per hour during the scan gives the sensors adequate time to measure each space precisely, rather than dismissing borderline spaces as too small. Owners who use the scan mode in dense urban environments consistently report finding suitable spaces they would have driven past entirely without the alert. The feature reframes parking from a search you conduct visually to a measurement the car performs automatically. The next feature is one almost every owner has looked at and decided not to bother adjusting. That decision is costing them more than they realize on every long drive they take. Number 6. The head-up display at the wrong height. Almost every Mercedes head-up display is set to the factory default projection height. Factory default means calibrated for a driver, or of approximately average height, sitting in approximately average position, with approximately average posture. Most drivers are not average across all 3 measurements simultaneously. The practical consequence is that the displayed information appears to float inside the windshield glass rather than appearing to sit on the road ahead. At incorrect calibration, the eye must refocus every time it moves from the road to the display and back because the 2 points are at different focal distances. The refocusing happens quickly enough that most drivers never consciously identify it as a problem. They simply notice that long drives involving frequent display references feel more tiring than they expected. Calibrating the head-up display for your specific eye position takes approximately 30 seconds in the display settings menu. The target calibration is when the projected image appears to sit on the road surface roughly 10 meters ahead of the bonnet rather than inside the glass itself. At the correct setting, the focal distance of the display matches the focal distance of the road, and the eye never needs to refocus at all. On models equipped with augmented reality navigation, the calibration matters considerably more. The AR system projects directional arrows onto a live camera image of the road ahead, so the turn indicator appears to be floating just above the actual tarmac in front of you rather than on a separate screen. At incorrect calibration height, the arrow appears disconnected from the road surface and is significantly harder to process in the fraction of a second available during a navigation decision at speed. Most drivers who turn off the head-up display permanently do so because it feels more distracting than helpful. Correct calibration typically reverses that conclusion entirely. The next feature is one almost every owner sets once and leaves forever. The result is a cabin atmosphere that never changes regardless of how you're driving or what mood you're in. Number 5. Ambient lighting. Set to one color, forever. The ambient lighting system on current Mercedes models offers 64 colors in entry configurations, and significantly more in higher specification vehicles. Most owners choose a color within the first week of ownership and leave it there indefinitely, treating the feature as a cosmetic setting rather than a functional one. The system is designed to do something the static single-color approach never delivers. Ambient lighting can be programmed to change automatically in response to the selected driving mode. In comfort mode, warm white or soft blue signals a calm, relaxed cabin character. In sport mode, red or deep amber reinforces the sharpened feel of the tightened steering and quicker throttle. In eco mode, a cooler green reflects the efficiency orientation of the drivetrain settings. These transitions happen automatically whenever a mode change is made, without any additional input after the initial configuration is saved. The integration with navigation is a second function most owners never enable. On certain model years, the ambient strip lighting produces a directional color pulse toward the side of an upcoming turn in the seconds before the maneuver is required. Most owners who have noticed this behavior assume the lighting is malfunctioning and switch it off rather than recognizing it as a navigation aid. The door panel lighting and main strip lighting can also be set to independent color temperatures in the full configuration, which creates a layered ambient environment rather than a flat single-tone wash. The difference between a single color flooding the cabin uniformly and separate warm tones in the door wells with a cooler tone in the main strip is the difference between a functional light and an actually designed interior atmosphere. Running the lighting in a static color you chose on day 1 means you are using about 1% of what this system was built to produce. There is also a brightness scheduling function on certain model years that adjusts ambient intensity automatically at dusk and dawn, brightening the interior as natural light fades outside rather than presenting the same output at noon and midnight. Most owners never discover this because it works silently in the background, only noticeable by its absence on vehicles where it has been switched off. The next feature has been in your car since you collected it. The instructions are in the owner's manual. Almost nobody has read that section. Number 4. The Energizing system. Left on standby. The Energizing comfort feature, available on E-Class and S-Class models and certain specification levels below, is statistically the least used premium feature on any current Mercedes. The system runs 4 cabin elements as a coordinated program rather than 4 separate controls. Seat massage function, ambient lighting, climate control output, and audio profile all operate together through a timed sequence designed specifically around driver alertness and comfort on extended journeys. Using them together in a programmed sequence produces a meaningfully different outcome than adjusting each one individually as mood dictates. There are 5 programs to select from. Freshness uses cooler air temperature, higher lighting brightness, and rhythmic seat movement to counteract early onset drowsiness on extended drives. Vitality combines moderate warmth with a lower intensity massage pattern and softer lighting for a relaxed but alert condition, appropriate for comfortable cruising. Warmth uses temperature and slower massage rhythms for cold weather morning commutes. Joy runs an upbeat genre audio suggestion alongside brighter lighting and a more active seat pattern. Comfort is the most gentle of the 5, calibrated for the final stretch of a long journey when physical fatigue has already accumulated. Driver fatigue research conducted during the system's development demonstrated consistent improvement in measured alertness at journey end among drivers who completed the same routes with and without Energizing active. The difference was most significant on journeys exceeding 90 minutes. Most owners tried Energizing once, found the seat massage unfamiliar on first contact, switched it off within the first 5 minutes, and never returned to it. The unfamiliarity of the first use is the entire barrier. The second and third uses produce consistently different responses. If this list is showing you features you paid for and never used, hit the like button right now. Number 3. The camera system, stuck in reverse. The 360-degree camera system on equipped Mercedes models is used almost exclusively in one context: reversing. The rear camera image activates automatically when reverse is selected. Most owners glance at it, and the interaction ends there. 3 additional camera views sit in the same menu and are almost never opened. The overhead bird's eye view assembles a composite image from all 4 individual cameras to show the vehicle from directly above as if viewed from a drone. All 4 corners of the car are visible simultaneously within a single image. Parking in tight corners, navigating narrow residential lanes, or positioning in a multi-story car park becomes significantly more manageable because the spatial relationship between the car and surrounding obstacles is immediately visible rather than requiring mental assembly from 4 separate mirror checks. The front camera view, selectable independently, shows ground-level obstacles in the path of the front bumper. This is valuable when pulling forward out of a parking bay where a low wall or curb beyond the bonnet is not visible through the windscreen, and the mirrors only show what is behind. The transparent hood view is where most owners have their first genuine moment of surprise when they discover it. The system uses the front camera feed combined with software processing to generate a virtual image of the ground and obstacles directly beneath the front of the car, as though the bonnet itself were made of glass. Navigating the step up into a steep parking entrance, edging through gateposts, or positioning over a marked bay line all become significantly simpler because you can see the precise position of the front wheels relative to the surface below. On models where parking positions can be saved, the overhead view is stored alongside the GPS coordinate, and the target position overlay appears automatically the next time the system detects you returning to that same space. The next feature sits inside the safety system. Most owners know one function of it. Almost nobody knows there are 3 more. Number 2, pre-safe used as a one-trick feature. Almost every Mercedes owner knows pre-safe exists in some form. When the system anticipates an unavoidable impact, it tightens the seatbelts, moves the front seats to a position that optimizes airbag interaction, and closes the windows and sunroof. That summary is what most owners carry. It represents roughly 1/4 of what the full system actually does. Pre-safe sound is the function almost no owner knows about, and it is arguably the most sophisticated individual element in the entire package. In the milliseconds before an anticipated impact, the system fires a brief broadband audio signal through the cabin speaker system. This triggers the stapedius reflex, an involuntary muscular contraction in the middle ear that causes the stapes bone to stiffen against the eardrum. This reflex is the ear's natural defense against sudden loud noise. The crash event itself, including the airbag deployment and structural deformation sounds, produces a pressure wave that can permanently damage hearing when the ear is unprepared. Pre-safe sound prepares the ear in the window, available before contact occurs. Pre-safe Plus addresses a specific and commonly encountered scenario. When the vehicle is stationary and a rear collision is detected as approaching from behind at a speed that indicates impact is unavoidable, the system applies additional brake pressure to prevent the car from being pushed forward into any vehicle or obstacle ahead of it. On models with reversing assist capability, it can execute a brief controlled movement forward to create additional distance behind the vehicle before impact. Pre-safe impulse side addresses lateral impacts. When a side collision is detected as imminent, air bladders within the outboard bolsters of the front seats inflate, physically moving the occupant inward away from the impacting door surface in the moment before contact. The displacement is small, but the positioning change reduces the structural load transferred to the occupant at the point of peak impact energy. None of these 3 functions require driver activation. They operate automatically in the background of every drive. Knowing they are there does not change how you drive, but knowing what is happening when the system fires removes the confusion that most owners feel the first time pre-safe activates unexpectedly. Number 1, Night Vision Assist. Nobody has switched on. This is the feature on equipped Mercedes models that most owners have never activated, and cannot tell you where the button is without checking. Night Vision Assist uses a forward-mounted thermal imaging camera integrated behind the front grille to detect heat signatures in the road environment ahead. Pedestrians, cyclists, and large animals generate body heat that registers clearly on thermal imaging at distances far beyond the effective range of any headlight system, regardless of beam intensity or direction. The specific capability that most owners do not grasp until they see the system working is the distance. The thermal camera can identify a pedestrian standing at the roadside in complete darkness at a range of approximately 900 meters. The effective range of full-beam headlights on a clean road under good conditions is approximately 150 to 200 meters. Night Vision Assist provides warning of hazards at 4 to 6 times the distance at which headlights could reveal them. When the system detects a warm body in or near the vehicle's predicted path, A warning indicator activates on the instrument cluster, and a highlighted spotlight effect is generated around the detected figure in the thermal display image. The driver receives an alert and a visual fix on the hazard before it is visible to the naked eye through any optical means available. The button or activation path is not prominently positioned on most models. It sits in the instrument cluster settings or within the driver assistance section of the central display rather than having a dedicated control on the steering wheel or dashboard. This is why the majority of owners have never found it without someone specifically showing them where it is. Drivers who use rural roads regularly at night, commute through areas with frequent deer activity, or drive in regions where pedestrians may be present outside lit zones experience a substantially different safety margin with this system active compared to the same routes without it. The camera image appears on the instrument cluster as a faintly green-tinted thermal view of the road ahead. Most owners who see it running for the first time describe a fairly consistent reaction. A brief pause, followed by the same quiet question: how long has this been in my car? The answer, for most equipped models, is since the day it was built. Years of night driving completed without it. Every rural road in the dark, every early morning before sunrise, every late return through unlit countryside, all covered without the one system specifically designed to make those journeys noticeably safer. Once activated and used regularly, returning to driving without it on night routes produces a feeling of absence that is difficult to ignore. It fundamentally redefines what a driver considers to be adequate forward visibility in low light conditions. That is 10 features, how they actually work, and the specific habits that unlock what they were built to deliver. Most require nothing more than a 5-minute setup and the knowledge that they exist in the first place. Click the video showing on your left right now, because it covers 5 more features sitting inside your Mercedes that most owners only discover by accident, and you will want to know about them before your next long drive.